We are taking a deep dive into a horrible disease, an illness that unfortunately still has no cure. It's called ALS, and that stands for amyotrophic lateral sclerosis.
Many people know it as Lou Gehrig's disease. We're talking about one of the greatest Yankees of all time. He was in his prime when he was diagnosed, and he was just 37 years old when he died.
May is ALS Awareness Month. It's a progressive neurodegenerative disease that affects nerve cells in the brain and spinal cord. The hard reality is that there is no cure for ALS yet, but there is hope.
There is hope, and to acknowledge that hope, we want to profile a very well-known New Yorker who now has ALS, a man who helped build much of the New York City structures that you've come to be familiar with over the last 25 years, a man who is giving it all he's got to help find a cure. Eyewitness News anchor Bill Ritter joining us here on the set to talk to us about Dan Doctoroff.
Oh, it's just amazing. And as you're going to see, Dan is a remarkable guy. He makes things happen. But now his biggest project ever, and fighting his ALS isn't his top priority, it turns out. Fighting it for the rest of us is. Look up the definition of a can-do New Yorker, and it's likely that we'd see a picture of Dan Doctoroff. Or at least we should see that picture. Over the last quarter century, Dan Doctoroff has been one of the most important and productive people in New York City. From coordinating the rebuilding of New York after the 9/11 terror attacks, to rezoning what would become important blocks in the biggest city in the country. Hudson Yards, 125th Street in Harlem, downtown Brooklyn, Long Island City, Jamaica, Coney Island, Yankee Stadium, Citi Field, Barclays Center, Governor's Island, the High Line, and even City Bike.
I asked Dan to be a deputy mayor for economic development when I first met him, and he was working on trying to get the Olympics to come to New York. He was tireless. He was insightful about how we were going to get this done.
Dan Doctoroff graduated from Harvard with a degree in government, and then later a law degree from the University of Chicago. No one ever questioned the intelligence of Dan Doctoroff, but now it is his heart that's being saluted. Because Dan is in the fight of his life, and in so many ways, he's also fighting something greater, the search for a cure for ALS, also known as Lou Gehrig disease. I interviewed Dan recently, and frankly, it was hard for him to speak, very hard. But through it all of it, Dan smiled. I'm happy, he told me. And he also said, I'm so lucky. Dan is no stranger to ALS. More than a decade ago, his dad died from it. So did his uncle. And so Dan started a medical research foundation to help fight this horrible disease. But like all other attempts, so far, there is no cure. Like others who have seen family members die from ALS, Dan was not shocked by his own diagnosis of ALS back in 2021. But for someone whose career depended on talking to people, not being able to talk, well, it has not been easy. And while talking is harder for Dan, fortunately, he has a partner, a very close partner, and she's now talking for him. His wife, Alyssa. They met at Harvard when they were both 18 years old, and they've been together ever since.
This sucks. This is terrible. It's, there are no words really to describe how awful it is. You don't have a choice in terms of what you're dealt, right? But you have a choice in what you do with it.
During our conversation, Alyssa told me that helping find a cure for ALS is now her family's purpose, which includes her 3 married kids and their 5 grandchildren.
It is a long bond. It's been strengthened, by lots of experiences that we've had together, and certainly I would say this most recent experience of being diagnosed with ALS and living with ALS has made that bond even stronger.
Next month, Dan is going to be honored by the country's most prestigious ALS group, the MDA's Wings Over Wall Street program. Like Dan, it too is raising money to try to find a cure for ALS. 2 different groups, but with one big goal.
I feel like his legacy in the city, yes, there is physical legacy all over the place. You know, you look around and you see, you know, buildings where there didn't used to be buildings. You see trees where there didn't used to be trees, parks where there didn't used to be parks, bike lanes where there were not bike lanes. You know, the city's been marked physically by him. But I also think the spirit that he has addressed not only city things, so like the city worked. Government can work if you bring the right people together. And I think the same is true with Target ALS.
This is an amazing man, Dan Doctoroff. Despite all this, he remains positive. We're making incredible progress, he told me during our interview. And then he offered this: I'm not quitting, and I'll do everything I can. Or, as his friend and former boss, Mike Bloomberg, would say,
He's almost as stubborn as I am. Before I met Dan, I wasn't sure that was even possible. But Dan's stubbornness is a big reason why New York City won the Olympics without ever hosting it, and why we were able to transform New York City in so many ways, and why the prospects for an ALS cure are now brighter than ever. Dan, for being endlessly stubborn in all that you do, thank you.
You know, when former Mayor Mike Bloomberg gives you kudos like that, well, that's pretty big stuff. What's most impressive is that Dan Doctoroff, having raised a ton of money for his ALS foundation, is now being honored by the MDA's ALS program called Wings Over Wall Street. My honor to have emceed their annual event for many years, and I will do it again next month. Dan will be there. Wow. Dan will be there to accept his award. And it's so incredible to watch one group that is raising research money to find a cure, honoring another group that is raising research money to try to find a cure. We need more than that, always. It's all one big goal. And my, oh my, again, we need more of that in our society.
That right there was beautiful. And that was more, we call it a profile, but I felt like that was truly a portrait of a life that has, we've seen so much resilience, but also a lot of impact, not only on New York, but on ALS now.
Right.
Just amazing. But you also have a personal connection to Dan Doctoroff.
I do, and we didn't know about it at the time that all this would happen. But 30 years ago, next month, I moved into an apartment I bought from his family. We had little kids, and now they've got 5 grandchildren for these 3 adult kids. And yeah, who knew? I didn't know him, he didn't know me, and but yeah, it was quite. Over the years, we kept in touch and everything else. I saw him on a beachfront in 2022. He had been diagnosed with this, but he didn't tell people yet. And he seemed okay. And it's, you know, there's no cure, and it goes down quickly. And his not talking is hard for him, but he's got that smile on his face.
And the thing is with ALS is the brain is still there. The brain is still there. The eyes are still there, and there's a brain in there that the city can use. You know what he did for New York City in terms of getting projects done in such a short amount of time. If people go back and read up on him, it's really incredible. We didn't even go into every single project that he helped accomplish in such a small time.
We could have been here for a couple hours.
Seriously, so it really is remarkable, but it shows just how this disease can really affect someone.
And I've known people with ALS, and their brains, as you say, it's all 100%, and they can't talk, and that's the hard part, I think, and it's frustrating. But he's smiling, and I think you know, the people I know who have died from this keep their wits about them. And they smile even though it's just inside eating them up. And their families. You know, Dan has Alyssa. They went to Harvard together. They went to the University of Chicago together. They've been together since they were 18. And she is really a good spokeswoman for him. There's no question.
He's an absolute visionary. But I want you to bring up that anecdote that you shared with us earlier about when he found out he was diagnosed. This is a man whose legacy has improved every New Yorker's life. But what did he ask his kids for? Yeah,
he did. He wanted them, so he had his 5 grandkids. He talked to them and said, I want 5 grandkids before this is over. You know, he wants things done, and he gets things done, and sure enough, he's got 5 grandchildren now. He and Alyssa.
And that shows you what he values, right? What he loves is that family, and that shows the man he is still. And what a legacy.
No,
I always
you
love
bring a
how
good-
emotionally connected you are to every story you do.
It's part of me. Lee Goldberg would say, "Stop crying all the time." but you know what? I look at him, and he's inspiring.
Yes.
He is an inspiring guy, and we need to take that message and understand how serious it is and what he's doing. And he's up here still.
Well, I promise
Thank
you,
you.
Danny is a lot nicer.
I will never tell you to
She'll
stop
never
crying.
tell you to
Keep
stop crying.
Bill. But I will try not to make you cry.
I knew I liked you from the beginning.
Thank you for bringing us such an important story.
Thank you for having the
Appreciate it.
story. That this station did this is a big deal.
Yeah.
Absolutely.